So welcome everyone to our Art4Advocacy workshop. That's part of our Art for Action Week, hosted by the National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse, along with the California Contra Costa County Meds Coalition. And I know we do have people from around the country participating today, and that's wonderful. So thank you very much for joining us. We have some amazing things to share about advocating through the use of art. And our featured artists are going to be Suzanne Firstenberg, Elizabeth Edwards, and Catherine Martin today. My name is April Romero, and I am the founder and the executive director of the National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse. So I'm going to start by calling up Suzanne Firstenberg. So Suzanne, if you can come off mute, and there you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I know you hail from the East Coast, and you can really share more about that, where you hail from and all that. So I wanted to start by just saying that I met Suzanne, I think about 3 years ago now, back in Washington, D.C., as I was introduced to her by a mutual friend who does a lot of wonderful video work, educational videos. She let me know that I really needed to connect with Suzanne because I was putting together at that point, organizing and planning an event that was really similar actually to our Art for Action Week. It was a single day event where we were going to bring as many forms of art together as possible to share information, to educate and excite people about taking action around America's opioid epidemic and just generally our overdose epidemic, right? So what a wonderful connection that's been. I have so enjoyed going to her studio. We went into Washington, D.C. at one point together to look at the facility, and just really have had some wonderful conversations since. So Suzanne, tell us about yourself, your art, and how you advocate using it.
Well, first of all, April, thank you so much for having me. This is such an important topic. As a visual artist who works in the social topic realm, I have addressed a number of issues. For example, Native American rights, homelessness and such. But it was about 4 years ago when I decided that I had to look into and investigate the topic of drug addiction. I was at the Bloedel Reserve on Bainbridge Island in Washington State. And as the resident artist, I had a month to wander around 150 acres of beautiful nature and consider what I would turn my attention to next. I had spent a lot of time with the grounds crews there. And one day I met a man named Brandon. He was maybe 24, 25. And he told me that he'd just gotten out of prison. And I was shocked. And I said, how could this happen? And he explained to me that when he was in the 8th grade, his single mom wanted a way to relate to him. And so she shared her oxy with him. Mm-hmm. He became wildly addicted and ended up in prison after being caught selling drugs out of the men's room in high school. And that made me realize that there was a whole world that I had no connection to, no understanding of. And so that's when I began traveling around the country. I went to 24 different states and interviewed hundreds of people who were suffering or recovering from addiction. And that's how I come to be here today. I created a 7-installation art series called The Empty Fix. And so I learned a lot, and I hope my art can really help others who are like me and don't understand enough about this to care more.
Well, your art is powerful, and we're going to have the opportunity to see a video that you so professionally put together for us to see various art installations around this topic. But what your most recent project, as I understand it, Suzanne, was your In America project. And so let's throw a photo up on the screen so folks can see what that looks like. And just visual impact immediately. Suzanne is just amazing. In America, yes. How could this happen? So tell us what we're looking at here.
As I tell people, you might not recognize my art. Some artists, you look at a painting and you know it's that artist, or you look at a sculpture and you know that artist. My art is is recognizable because you feel it viscerally. I'm all about empathy and changing people's lenses to look at topics differently or to understand topics better. Last summer, when a government official had said 170,000 deaths from COVID, it's just a statistic, I bristled at that headline because I've been a hospice volunteer for 25 years, and every life has value. And so I wanted, as a visual artist, to make it very clear that the loss of each individual matters. And so at the DC Armory Parade Ground last fall, I planted one white flag for each person who had died to date from COVID, and I changed that number on that large sign each day. People matter. And if we become a nation that doesn't care, who are we? And so hearing that we have lost 88, maybe over 90,000 people to overdose this past year, it's so incomprehensible to me. And so I look forward to sharing my art, the Empty Fix series, with people. And most people have not gotten to see this art. Only 2 of the 7 installations have actually been presented so far, because I finished the 7th just as we were going into the pandemic lockdown. So we're previewing art that some of it has been seen, but most has not yet.
Oh, great. I hope to give you a large audience. We have several people on, of course, today, but we will be posting the video of this workshop on our YouTube channel, and it will go out in a much bigger way. So, yeah, and I can absolutely say it's such a visceral, really compelling reaction I had at going through your studios and seeing the various installations that you had there. It's just amazing. And some of them are just so simple too. The one we'll see with the jeans, that one is a simple concept, but boy, it leaves you with such a feeling of loss and, taking you back to who that person was and, why are they not here? You mentioned that every life matters, and that is so true. And unfortunately, with the stigma that surrounds, overdose and people with substance use disorder, it's almost as though some of those lives don't matter in the minds of some people. And that's not the way it should be. Every single life, including those that we're losing to overdose. And, we're struggling to get into recovery, and hopefully sustain that recovery is so important to us. So thank you for all the work you're doing to help bring awareness. And I hope that once COVID starts to, abate and we can get back out there again, we can find all sorts of ways to get your art installations out there in a bigger way. So let's go ahead and jump over to the video again that I mentioned earlier, and we can actually see what those installations look like. Not in person, but this is the next best thing right now.
Feels like somebody has your fucking head in a vice. All day, every day. The vice by the addiction, by your own thoughts, by your own fucking pain. It's getting crushed every day. That's what it's like.
I've traveled over 57,000 miles to more than 20 states to understand addiction and to create a series of art installations to decrease the stigma surrounding drug addiction. Hi, I'm Suzanne, and this is a preview of that resulting art series.
Is it just me, or can I only hear but not see the video?
Yeah, I just sent a message to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, we're not seeing the video play correctly. It seems to not be centered on the screen. Give it another minute.
Give me 1 second. It says it was paused even though it wasn't paused.
Oh, we don't miss it. There we go. We're in better shape now. Thank you. Oops.
And then it pauses.
And then it pops into this weird mode.
Yeah, it might be because the file's too large. Let me just play it this way.
Feels like somebody has your fucking head in a vice. All day, every day. The vice by the addiction, by your own thoughts, by your own fucking pain. It's getting crushed every day. That's what it's like.
I've traveled over 57,000 miles to more than 20 states to understand addiction and to create a series of art installations to decrease the stigma surrounding drug addiction. Hi, I'm Suzanne, and this is a preview of that resulting art series, The Empty Fix. For this art series, I traveled around the nation interviewing people who were suffering or recovering from drug addiction. The core of each interview consisted of key elements. I would photograph people's eyes. I would ask them why they became addicted, what fueled that addiction. I would get an audio recording of each person's description of the actual compulsion or urge to use. And then I also gave each interviewee a note card on which he or she would write a message meant for you. Here is a preview of the Empty Fix art series installations. You will first see the people I interviewed when you have a chance to see my installation entitled Eyes. I've taken those photos of people's eyes, applied them to glass blocks with a resin process, and I'll present them submerged in fountains and reflecting pools because addiction is like drowning. We walk right past individuals who are slumped over on the sidewalk from addiction, but we've been socialized to never walk past someone who's drowning. One of my first interviews was with a young woman at a tribal health center. She said, Suzanne, yes, it was my fault because I chose to try these drugs. But pretty quickly, the tables turned and the drugs began using me. That made perfect sense to me. So I began recording people describing the actual urge to use. I wanted people to understand that this is not a choice.
Tries to get you to go back to it over and over again. It's like insanity, you know?
Kind of crazy.
It was crazy. I couldn't go without it.
There's no logical reason to why I did it.
It's even worse being a logical person because you know it's completely illogical. Any sense at all.
Every nerve fiber was motivated.
Inside every fiber of my being
It could rain over
wants the drug.
all my thoughts.
Beaming into my head, telling me that,
Oh,
you know,
why not just
it's going to be okay. You can do it one time.
once?
You're going to be able to handle it. It'll just be
Just
once.
go get it. Don't worry. And it never turns out that way. It never turns out that way.
I've conceptualized, in collaboration with an art therapist, a community art project that people across the country can replicate to honor their loved ones lost to overdose. Entitled Unforgotten, these strands of gene pockets provide space upon which people can write the names of those who have died because of drug addiction. The varying hues of denim reflect shades of humanity, and the pockets allow for private notes to be added. While interviewing people, I realized that they have a lot to share. So I gave each interviewee a note card upon which to write a message. These messages are for you. I present them in medicine cabinets contained within bathroom segments to provide an environment reflective of private moments. Cabinets contain typical bathroom items, providing some hint of the writer's life. Viewers can write their own messages anonymously for us to on Empty Fix social media. A young man in a Salt Lake City homeless shelter taught me to ask not how someone became addicted, that doesn't matter, but to ask why. And the answers were so consistent. People are made vulnerable to addiction by psychological injury, sexual abuse, trauma, neglect, bullying, social isolation. We focus our attention on physical safety, but what can we do to keep our youth psychologically safe?
I use drugs to numb the pain.
I've picked up so I could forget watching my brothers being abused by my dad. I first used because I felt lonely and was looking for a way to escape. I was physically, mentally, and sexually abused by my father.
At treatment centers, I was often warned not to refer to addiction sufferers as addicts. They are persons suffering from substance use disorder, I was cautioned. But they go to NA meetings and introduce themselves by saying, "Hi, my name is John, and I'm an addict." It makes no sense. By avoiding use of the word, aren't we further stigmatizing it? Instead, let's democratize the word addict. I'm currently creating the final art installation, one that addresses the hope of sobriety. Recovery isn't just about stopping the intake of chemicals. It is about healing and learning to love oneself. People in recovery are sculptors, just like me, but their work is so much harder because they are sculpting, recreating themselves. And in the process, they are becoming some of the strongest people I have ever met. This one is for them. For more information about the Empty Fix project, visit emptyfix.com or contact me directly.
Oh gosh, Suzanne, that brings back great memories of having that amazing opportunity to walk through the Protect Them, the whole huge long, I guess it was really a trailer, right? Just almost a cargo trailer, and just being assaulted in a sense with all this visual stuff that made you think. I could have spent hours in that one facility alone, or that one installation.
I'll share a quick artist story with you. As an artist, one never knows how one's art is going to be received. And when I finally got the audio working in there, and you can't tell from that quick video clip, but I've hidden 7 speakers in there so that as you walk through, voices are talking to you. That wasn't a separate audio file. And when I first experienced it myself, I actually had tears in my eyes, because it worked physically and it worked psychologically. It separated those two, just as I was intending the art to show the separation of the way we keep kids safe. So,
your art is amazing, and I think it's going to have greater, bigger impact once you get it out there and people are able to see it. I'm anxious to see what your next art project's about. So a little bit of a teeny preview on that one. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to do to just summarize or finalize your segment here?
Well, I would just say that I think all of us artists have a special responsibility now more than ever to use our craft to speak to these social issues, because words are going unheard, and might be because of politics or because we're getting into our own echo chambers. But I think art can really help, and we need it. So I would just thank everybody who supports the visual arts and the performing arts.
Thank you for being here. And I'm just going to continue to follow everything you do, and I'm sure I'll be amazed by every bit of it. So as I have been so far. Thank you, Suzanne. So next I want to switch gears, and we're going to focus on music as a way to do some advocacy work. We have Elizabeth Edwards with us. So Elizabeth, we go way back also, even further than Suzanne and I do. I think at least 5 to 7 years. I don't know, I've lost track. Really all around the Fed Coalition, the work we did back in Washington, DC, while I put these rallies together and whatever else. So
yeah, it was remarkable that I went all the way to Washington, D.C. to meet April, who lives about 30 minutes from me.
I know, and I'm so delighted. I learned you're a neighbor, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah, thank you for doing this and for all the work that you do, April. You're an inspiration, and I'm so honored to be included into today's conversation. Music and advocacy for me really go together. You know, I started writing songs when I was about 12 years old. I come from a really big family. I also had a lot of addiction run in my family. And so by the time I was 17, I was writing songs by 12, playing music, doing a lot of things. And by 17, I was, you know, addicted myself, and the music went away. So when I got sober, clean and sober at age 25, I was able to pick that guitar back up and start writing songs. And it changed everything, because it was my way of healing, was through music myself. And good writers write what they know. And for me, my life had become about recovery, thank God. And so today I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've got 34 years, and I've been blessed with all kinds of amazing things that have happened to me musically. But throughout that whole musical journey and recovery journey, my music and my recovery came more and more together through different songs I'd written, which is what brought me to the Fed Up rally at the Washington Monument when I met you the first time. And what had happened is I'd written a song called Where Did Beautiful Go?, which was about a personal song about one of my family members who had suffered from an opioid addiction and thankfully got into recovery. But the toll that took on our family was tremendous. And I'd written this song, Where Did Beautiful Go? And some people had heard it and said, would you come to this rally and sing that song? And I said, absolutely. And my music had already been being used in different recovery projects and different types of shows I would do with other, you know, recovery comedians, and we would do concerts and events. And so I was kind of used to the idea of putting those two together, but I wasn't prepared for what I saw when I came to Washington, D.C. When I was standing on that stage and I looked out over an audience of people with their children and loved ones' faces plastered to their t-shirts with the birth and death date. And those dates were the dates of my children. Their birth dates were the same age of my children. And it blew me away. And one of the things that I recognized when I performed that day was I'd found a new home for a place I really needed to serve. And what came up for me was that what I sensed was something that I had been in touch with my whole life as an artist and a person who was very vocal about my recovery. I knew what stigma was, and I knew that stigma was very damaging. And here I was faced with all these people who had had the worst happen to them. Their loved one, their child most often, was lost to this terrible epidemic. And they were also stigmatized on top of it, because there was this whole understanding that I gained around it. And I thought, that is so unfair. So they asked me to come back, you guys asked me to come back the next year. And I said, I will, but I want to write a song about you and for you. And so that's when I brought the Hero song. So that's what I wanted to play.
I totally want to hear it, and I'm sure it will bring tears to my eyes, just like it did the first time I heard it. It's just a very touching song for those of us who have lost a precious person. In my case, it was my son, as you know, to an accidental overdose. It means a lot that you've taken the time to focus on us, and giving us a healing opportunity through your song too. So thank you. You're going to play it for us now, right?
Yes, I'm going to play it for you. And so one of the things that I really walked away from that experience with, and has become a really core part of my work, is I really believe that advocacy happens when we take our greatest pain and turn it into purpose. And so this song is about people who've done just that, and it's called You'll Always Be My Hero. And the reason well, the song will speak for itself, hopefully, but let's see. Can you hear that okay?
Yes.
I kiss the freckles on your face. I tuck your photo back in place. I take you everywhere I go. I tell everyone I know that you'll always be my hero. You're worth every tear I've cried. So I'll work with faith and pride. And you'll always be my hero. And if they need someone to blame, I won't let them bury you in shame. 'Cause they're not standing in our shoes with a fate no one would choose. And you'll always be my hero. You're worth every tear I've cried. So I'll work with faith and pride. And you'll always be my hero. There's a meaning and there's a mission. Every life ever given. And you'll always be my hero. You're worth every tear I've cried. So I'll work with faith and pride. And you'll always be my hero. You'll always be my hero.
Thank you. Takes me right back to DC, seeing you on that stage with all these, hundreds and hundreds of people surrounding you and taking that song in. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for playing it today. And thank you for continuing to advocate. I know you're really well known in the recovery world. You've done a lot of work in helping to support nonprofits and recovery places, and just wonderful work. Your advocacy really stands out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell you, I really wrote that song. Thank you so much for that. I wrote that song for people just like you, April, because I think the meaning and the mission, Suzanne referred to that every life has meaning. And sometimes it's not the way we want it to be, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And it takes, I think, tremendous strength to be able to transform that pain into real purpose. And I see you do that. And I see many people around this country do that. And so that's what that's about for me. I co-wrote that song with my dear friend and producer, Rick Beretta. So I want to credit him as well. And he also has done some of the recording pieces that are coming up. And I wanted to also let people know that that song, and I always knew it would be, and it's starting to happen. So I'm so excited about this. I am working with an artist, a visual artist. I'm not releasing any of the information specifically of who, but there is a multimedia project that is coming to be built around this song that will be pulling in actual real life people's experiences. And I cannot wait to bring the bigger picture and the bigger statement that this song, I know in my heart from the moment I wrote this that when Rick and I finished this song, we knew there was a bigger meaning and place in the world for this song. So if you want to know, keep in touch with what's going on with that. It's all at givingvoicetorecovery.com. And you can obviously always go through April. I let her know kind of what's going on with me. So thank you so much for including me today. And yeah, any questions, if anybody has anything they want to say or write or ask or whatever, I'm totally open.
Okay, well, we're going to wait until the end to ask questions.
Okay.
If we have time, I'm sure we will. So thank you so much, Catherine. We'll be back though with questions and answers. I actually saw one already. So, okay,
Oh, great.
I'm going to call up next Catherine Martin, who I met through a mutual friend, actually. The NCAPDA has a branch in North Carolina. And so we've been holding rallies back in Raleigh, North Carolina for recognizing the International Overdose Awareness Day on August 31st for the last 4 years, I believe. We're moving into our 5th year. And I was told that I had to connect with Catherine. Catherine Martin lives in North Carolina, and that she was this amazing portrait artist. And I'm going to let her share exactly how she puts her amazing talents to use. So welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for being here today. And why don't you share where you are, what you do, and how you advocate through your art?
Thank you so much for having me. My art started, this particular art project, the Opioid Addiction Project, started about 5 years ago. Well, let me go back to the beginning. In 2004, my son Alex died in an automobile accident, a catastrophic automobile accident. And he was an addict. And his lifestyle is certainly what killed him. And many years passed, really, really wanting to do something to honor my son. And I started seeing pictures in the paper of young adults, teenagers and adults, and the obituaries would talk about their addiction. And so I decided to do this project in honor of my son and to show people that this could be anybody's child. It was everyone's child. And there's so much stigma, or was, I think that's leaving. But the parents, not only did we have to endure losing children, but we had to endure the judgmental behavior of those around us. And that was because I think people were very ignorant of the addiction, the facts, what was happening to these families. And it could happen to anybody. So I started painting these portraits. I did not know who these children were. I wrote down many of the names. And then I met you and I met Frankie. And Frankie invited me to come to the program and to paint portraits of the speaker's children that had died. And from there, and with your help, it just became this project where I've probably done 150 portraits and gifted them to the families. And when I first started doing this, my friends would say, this is too hard. You can't do this. But I put these portraits all around my studio and I talk to them. Every day I talk to them. And I began to understand and see their eyes and the beauty of these children and these adults and how their families were trying to cope. And this would help destigmatize these children. And it's odd to say, but I love painting. I love painting them and sharing them with their families.
Well, and I am blessed to have one of your portraits of my dear son, Joey. And what I have found is amazing about your portraits, Catherine, is that you're not just capturing an image from a photo. You capture, and I'm not the only one to say this, you're capturing their personality somehow, the essence of them in that portrait. I have just found it absolutely astonishing and amazing. I know other parents now, of course, around the country have lost their children too. And I have gotten to know their children through the parents, and they tell me the same thing. It's like, this is him or her. You just do an amazing job. And the fact that you're talking to them, I love that. You know,
Oh, I just
you're
talked to
making a connection with these, you know, these
Well, I feel
people are
like I'm
common,
talking to
but
my son too.
yeah, they live though through you, and you're helping them to stay
And
focused.
I will do this, I hope, as long as I can hold a paintbrush. I do not intend on stopping.
Well, and NCAPDA has been able, thankfully, to
So
provide
generous.
funding that provides you the supplies and all that stuff. And also we ship these portraits to the families at no cost. And so I'm just so happy we're able to do that, that our board has supported that effort, and I want to continue it as long as we can. So we do have a short video that you prepared to take us for a little jaunt through your studio there. We have a little glimpse of it behind you, of course, but let's go ahead and play the video and we'll come back and talk a bit more.
Hi, I'm Kathy Martin. This is my studio in Apex, North Carolina. This is where I paint. So look around and see what you think. Over here are other paintings that I've painted. This is what I do all day and really love it. And I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, I started painting people of the opioid crisis. Here is an entire, this entire wall were my beginning paintings that I did. I got these paintings from newspapers and magazine articles where people talked about their children and the opioid crisis. A lot of these, I have not yet found the address of who they belong to. So if you could take a look at any of these that you know who they are, please contact me or April Rivero, and let's find out who these paintings belong to, and we can have them sent. This is where I paint.
Yeah, so Catherine, I know we've been looking forward to being able to publicly show the portraits, because we so much want to get them to the family of the person that's been lost. So I'm really hopeful that this will help with that.
And I do hope people will recognize.
Yeah.
And let me send these to the families.
Okay, and we want to invite others who may be watching.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so the invite is out there to, we basically need a photograph sent over to NCAPDA. There is on our website a location where you can basically get the information you need to email a photo to me, and then I pass it on. I log it in. We try to track all of the work we're doing together, and then that gets sent over to Catherine so she can get her magic paintbrush out and do her thing. So,
well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for letting me tell my story and also to share my paintings.
Well, you do a great job, and I know you're going to continue doing your work, which I love. So why don't all of our artists come back on, and let's see what kind of questions we have. I see there are some things in the chat here. So I see comments like amazing. Let's see if we have any specific questions. So this one would be for you, Suzanne. It says, Ms. Firstenberg, say more about democratizing the term addict, and specifically how that is expected to lessen stigma or bias.
Thanks for that question. And it might sound like a strange thing, democratizing a word, but when a word carries stigma, you're giving it power, and but it's a negative power. And so instead of avoiding the word, my intent is to say, let's create empathy with that word, and let's have a better understanding. Well, it's a different kind of addiction when there's a chemical included. It's still a negative behavior that we do very commonly, and that has negative ramifications in our lives. And I think that if we all sense that we have certain things in our lives to which we act in an addictive manner or respond in an addictive manner, it opens us up to be more empathetic to those who have very serious chemical addictions. So I hope that that answers the question. I really believe that words shouldn't have the power that we give them sometimes.
Well, the other thing, so I had the opportunity in your studio to actually see your addiction art installation. That was extremely powerful. And what the impact for me was that the words substance use disorder do not apply to things like, being addicted to playing, your video games or eating or all those other things. So the word still has a place, in our world. And yeah, we do want to destigmatize. And so I personally try to use substance use disorder when I can and where it makes sense. But I think the word addict still does have a place, and ideally it'd all be gone, but it's not ever going to happen. We'll never get rid of it completely.
Right.
Thank you.
And one of the things I couldn't show the entire video, but the first two vignettes, if you will, just set the viewer up to understanding that we start our response to stimuli with judgment. We've been taught to judge things. The first is a spoon that looks brown. It looks like someone was using it to cook heroin. And then you see it being picked up and dipped into a chocolate ice cream. The next is a man who has white powder that he's wiping from under his nose. And then the other screens activate and you see that he was eating a powdered donut. Those two vignettes set people up to go, oh, wow, I misjudged that. Yeah. And I really want that message too to come through, that we've allowed media and our pastimes, like when you turn on TV, you see shows that teach us to judge. And part of decreasing the stigma is to realize that the judgment starts with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, there is a question I think I know the answer to, but I'll ask it anyway. And that is amazing song. Would you mind sharing the song? So I know with your upcoming project that's probably a little problematic, but could you respond to that one?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question exactly.
Yeah, the question is, would you mind sharing the song? And so I don't think it's been recorded and released per se, has it?
The only recorded version of it is the version that has been used for memorials. And yeah, I do grant license on that. So you just need to contact me through my website if you want to use it, the existing recorded version, for like if you have a memorial event. If it's for some other project, I'd need to know way more about it. But the actual project that I'm using it for, once that's published, I think there will be a lot more opportunity for that song. But yeah, if you have a specific idea in mind, just contact me and we can take it from there.
Okay, that's from me, huh? All right, so then I have a new message down here. This is from George again. He says, talk about the subjective effects, nonverbal, and the variety of your experience during and after each performance or viewing of your art. And so this is meant to go to everybody. So would someone like to take that one on? I can read it again. It was a little bit wordy, but talk about the subjective effects or the nonverbal effects and the variety of your experience during and after each performance or viewing of your art.
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. I'll go ahead and go. I'm not, I wanted to kind of skip back just a little bit about stigma. One of the things about words, because for me as a songwriter, my canvas is the melody and my paint is the words. And I think what when we use certain words in certain ways over and over again and they lock in a meaning, I think the power of taking that word back and saying, okay, I have an addictive pattern. I can say it how I want to and need to use the word versus have the word use me. That's, I wanted to tag on to that little conversation earlier. So to me, as a wordsmith, that's, for me, powerful. Words are powerful, and we should think of them as powerful, and we should own the power that we give them on the receiving and the giving end of it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. For me, music goes straight here. So skips a lot of the other spots. So when I'm not sure if I had a beautiful response to everybody else's work, and I think art inspires other art. I'm totally inspired by these ladies' work, and I get inspired by other artists all the time. And so I think I'm always in and out of those types of responses of all kinds of different experiences. But yeah, I think it all kind of filters through the artist's mind. So,
well, and just taking My Hero song and just taking it back to DC when we had all these parents who had been so deeply affected by their loss, and the reaction we all had to that song, I can count myself among them. It was obvious, and nonverbal would certainly be the tears rolling down cheeks, and the input back to you, the reaction I'm sure that you received, not just by me, but many others. So,
and I think that's what music can actually go straight to the part of your experience that almost isn't, even though I'm giving you a picture, the actual energy of it is more right to the heart. And that's why I think really impactful songs, that's what they do. They connect at the heart level. I also can go through an experience. I've always seen a visual with that. A visual was what gave me the first line of that song. I kissed the freckles on your face. I saw all those pictures of those beautiful children. And I knew what it felt like when I couldn't look at a picture of somebody when they were younger because I couldn't stand the pain of where they were now. So I knew that feeling. And so that's why that was the first line of that song, was so painful and yet these people had the ability to take that picture and put it right on their heart.
Yeah,
and that was powerful. It was a powerful image for me as an artist. Mm-hmm. I just took what you gave me and put it back in an art form.
Well, and every person that listens to that song is going to have their own unique and personal reaction to it. For me, it's my son Joey. For someone else, it's going to be another loved one. So, so Suzanne, you've got so many different art installations, and there would be reaction, I'm sure, each one of them in way different ways, potentially, because of the context of those art installations. So how would you respond to that question?
When people sit down and listen to the entire 13-minute loop of my composition of the voices, it's 64 different voices, explaining what it's like at that moment when a person chooses to use, or really is forced to use in a way, that is so powerful and so truly disturbing that as an artist, when people finish that, I just have to provide them quiet. I have to provide viewers space. Even viewers who come through the Protect Them, the shipping container. This is very provocative art, and people do need time and space. And so I try to provide them that.
Well, and it does, all of your senses are lit up through your art. I found personally, it's the audio, it's the visual, it's even the textual. So, and I know you hadn't mentioned it, I don't think it was really displayed in the video, but you also do amazing sculpture. So I remember seeing some of your pieces in your studio and just being blown away with what you put together there too.
Well, thank you. With the Empty Fix, what I did was I chose to do the 7 different installations by taking different bits from each of my interviewees. I wanted to separate their voice from their handwriting on the notes, from their eyes, and from their experiences as recounted in the shipping container to provide them anonymity. So that's one of the reasons why I used what I got from each interviewer in very different installations. But it also gave me the chance to compare the experiences in the imprisoned, in that audio composition. People use the same words so often to describe the urge to use it. There's a universality around this experience, and I was really struck by that. And so I used that commonality to create themes in that piece. But I just hope that my art gives people entree into this topic, people who don't really get it, who think that it's a choice, and to think that it's just, if you have willpower, you can easily conquer this. It's just not true.
No, it's really, really hard. It's really hard. I also saw your, I call them resin blocks, the eye project. That was at the very end of a film recently that I was given access to
Yes.
watch. That SAFE project was sponsoring a kind of an intro to a gala event. Do you want to talk about that at all? What, how you connected and got asked to provide those blocks for that film?
Oh, they found out, the producers of that found out that I was going around the country interviewing people, and they wanted somehow to use my art to support that film. And so they used the glass blocks.
Well, I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect to see your art there. And at the end of the film, there's Suzanne. It was amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I created the eyes in water, it's explained what I'm doing with it in that video, but I wanted to have one of the 7 art installations in a place where people would just run into them casually. Some people may not choose to go into a museum or a gallery to see art that addresses the topic of drug addiction. And so I wanted at least one of the installations to be something that people would run across, then go, oh, and that would draw them into the topic. One of the things I wanted to mention to Catherine in creating these beautiful, beautiful portraits, I would love to see these portraits of yours en masse. I really think that they should be exhibited all together, because people tend to really pay attention and be overwhelmed by that. And those portraits are so beautiful. I noted that in many of them, it's the way the family remembers that person. They're smiling, or it's a casual, beautiful moment. And often they're looking at the viewer, and it would just be incredible to see all of those together.
Thanks.
One of our problems is they get shipped out to the families. But why don't you talk about the art exhibit that you were invited to participate in down in Wilmington that we got to go to together?
That was wonderful. That was
amazing.
A show on death and dying.
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted to say about the portraits isn't, it was not nonverbal, it was verbal. Everybody wanted to talk about the experience they had had with perhaps a child who had been addicted to opioids. Everybody just opens up. I'm very open about the death of my child. And I think when you do that, as you know, it just lets everything pour out of people. They are so glad to be in a non-judgmental space to talk about the good parts, the wonderful things about their children.
Mhm.
And the show was, we were all lucky to have it in Wilmington. It was a beautiful show. And I have these up in my studio, and people are wandering in and out, not so much this past year, but now that it's open again. And it's amazing how open people are. They need a safe space.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I found that since the beginning, as you have been, Catherine. My family, myself, we've been open about what happened to our son too. And what I found over the years, and it's been almost 11 years now, almost 12 since we lost him, but 11 that I've been doing this work, is that when we're willing to open up and share the most painful thing that's ever happened to us, you find other people willing to share too. And it's allowing them space to share their grief and their problems, and, you know, to admit that there's an issue even in their family where maybe they'd never even talked about it before. So the
And when
more ways
everybody
that do that,
talks and
right?
opens up, there's no shame.
That's right.
There's
Yeah,
just
there
no
shouldn't
shame.
be. There shouldn't
No,
be.
not at all. But you know how people tend to feel that, and
Mhm.
like it just dissipates when you start talking.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
one thing quickly, April, that strikes me is when I was doing the In America flag project in Washington, D.C., so many people during this pandemic have not had a chance to grieve, and the deaths of their loved ones have not been publicly acknowledged. And that was one of the things that we created with the flags, is a place of mourning. And if we've lost over 90,000 people to overdose in the last year, that's a whole lot of public acknowledgement and mourning that needs to be recognized.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, the pandemic kind of dwarfed the epidemic. And when the pandemic is handled, I'm afraid we're still going to be left with this epidemic. And that's one of my concerns. And I think as advocates, it's so important for us to not continue, you know, we need to continue to speak out and draw attention. That's one of the things I think art does. It calls people's attention to things that as a society, I think we want to pay attention to.
Mhm.
So I just really admire everybody on this call for doing that work, and would encourage anybody who has that kind of passion for creativity that they can put that out there. It's kind of an all hands on deck kind of a cause. That's at least how I feel about it.
Whatever your talents are to make a difference,
Yeah.
right? So whether it's art, if it's just plain old getting out there and talking about this issue, whatever, everybody can make a difference. And so again, all of our workshops this week are meant to drive action in the end. And I hope that this is resonating with someone out there, and we will see more action and more soldiers standing beside us wherever they are to move things along. I wanted to read one more note. So Andrea indicated in her chat message, it's not a question, but I want to close with this. It says, I am so moved by your ability to take this difficult subject, and we know it is, right? And make it so beautiful, honoring, and something that penetrates in such a powerful way. I am so thankful to be here with you. Thank you, Andrea. That is an amazing statement. I really appreciate that. And I know all of us do, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to share my screen again, just a little moment, and I want to be able to point everybody to this last slide. And actually, I think I pulled up the wrong file. I'm sorry. One second. Here we go. My little things here, slideshow from beginning. Okay, so here we are. This is the main flyer for the rest of the activities this week for Art for Action Week. So we do have a Youth for Action workshop scheduled for tomorrow between 5 and 6 p.m. And these are in Pacific time. That's where we are in Northern California. And on Friday, and so that's obviously a youth-oriented thing. We actually have our youth ambassadors leading that workshop. So would love to have anyone here today tune in and join them and see how youth are taking action and sharing their voices in various ways. And then on Friday, we're going to have a hip hop for action, using that form of music to show how it can be used to advocate, to express yourself, to get rid of your stress and strains of life. So that is going to be directed towards youth also, but anyone can attend. So I have to believe some of you may be interested in that one. And then on Saturday, there's going to be a very special thing I don't think anybody's ever done, and that's to use improvisation to share our messaging. So there's going to be multiple vignettes that we've been coaching the improv team to focus on, different elements of the prescription drug environment, the overdose situation, et cetera. So we have a couple of our youth participating in that also, and really looking forward to checking that one out. That one's also meant to be a bit of a fundraiser, so we can continue doing the work we do. It's free to attend, but anybody who has some extra money and would like to donate to our organization is encouraged to do that. So I'm going to end the workshop by thanking every one of our amazing artists. I was so excited about having all of my good friend artists on the same call, our Zoom session. So now you know each other. My dream would be that somehow you manage to collaborate in some way to moving forward. So you know each other now, you'll be able to connect with each other. And thank you so much for everything you're doing and for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, April.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.